Hello. I was chatting with somebody that I'm Facebook friends with, and she was talking about taking some of her pages of work that she's done and putting them into a journal in some way. And I told her that I started doing that during COVID and started binding mine. So I thought I would do a little flip through as I promised her I would do. These are pretty much everything that I've done in 2021 and a little bit of 2022. And then I also have some larger size ones, and I started working in this format because I realized how different it is when you go from medium to big, and then yes, I even have some that are even smaller. So these, when I bound these, I made sure that I put the holes so that they will line up with this one, the smaller size. So then when I go to bind the entire thing, I can intersperse the large ones and the small ones. I'll show you this one first. This is the one I have handy. And I'll just do flip through. I'll go kind of slow, I guess, and you can see them. Now, I've had some conversations with some people lately about what an art journal is. And it can be many different things to many different people. And I think it depends on your approach. When I'm teaching it, I am trying to teach from the approach of it being on folded paper with the intention of binding it into a book, which is like a diary or a journal would normally be put into a book. Since you're creating stuff, some of this you might like well enough to put it up on your wall. And if you do that, you're not going to be able to see the other side of it. So what I would suggest is if it's something that you really, really like and you love the way it came out, then get a high quality print of it and just have it printed and frame the print. And then you can keep the original artwork in your journal. So the things that I like to do with these are, first of all, I like to kind of put my thoughts down on paper. Sometimes I put my thoughts down, but I don't want other people to read them. So I have little ways of hiding those, and I'll show you as I flip through. Also, it's a good place to experiment with new materials before you go and commit to a larger piece that you might want to have as a finished piece of artwork to submit to a gallery, or if you're working on it as a commission. So that way you really know how the materials are going to interact with the materials that you're using to create the piece. So here's the large one. And as you can see, I've got some blank pages, so I still have more room to work. And that happens also as, you know, you're creating journals. It's like, oh, I'm not sure what I want to do on that page, or maybe I'm done. And what's fun about it too is that sometimes, like, I look at this and I feel like, you know what, that could use some more work. And so I can always come back to it at a later time. And then this, it's like, what am I going to put on the other side of that? I don't know. It kind of has a mermaidy feel, very ocean. It's got the ship and the waves. So I might do something to complement this, but then again, maybe not. Who knows? This one, personally, I look at it, I'm like, this can take some more work. So I'll probably pull that out one day, or as I'm looking through, and something will just jump out at me and I'll start working on it some more. So these are the other ones. And again, some of the pages are done, some of them aren't, but I'm just going to flip through. Here I wrote some stuff on it that I didn't want it to be necessarily seen. And I use different techniques to hide the writing, but you can still see that writing is there. And that's one of the things that I do in my classes, is show you how you can hide some of your text. So it can be a diary of sorts, but then you create art on top of it, and it becomes part of the elements of the artwork. Here's a 2-page spread. Sometimes, you know, it's nice to kind of expand the piece that you're working on. So 2-page. And also I realized after I did this, that this lettering doesn't show up so great on this. So the next time, I might not use a pretty sparkly gold ink when I write. I might use something different. And that's what this is for. It's trial and error. And this one is, you know, just a personal thing. I've got 2 cats. Something traumatic happened to them both last summer. And my little orange guy, who looks just like this, was being so sweet to his brother. So I thought, you know, I need to make a page for my little Peanut. And this one is kind of what life is like right now in the cold northeast of New Hampshire. And this is what life feels like. I am out in the middle of a frozen lake. And the snow keeps falling. Today we had ice and sleet that accumulated. Not great. Thank goodness I don't have to go to work today. So this one, see, I'll tilt it in different angles so hopefully you can see it. But I discovered some new pens. Whenever I travel, I like to look for art supplies, and if something pops up that I don't have, of course I have to have it. So this was from, you know, some trips I recently took, and I found these really cool pens that have glitter in them. And, you know, again, I looked back at it, I'm like, this one needs some more work, so I did some more on this today. 2-page spread using fluorescent paint. And these are small pages that I used when I was doing a smaller journal, and I used these for the front and back cover. So they're a little bit of a harder cardstock that won't be included in the journal. This one's not done. I've looked at it and I'm like, you know, I think I'm going to do some more to this. Again, not sure. I like the softness of these 2 pages, so that will probably stay. Another 2-page spread. I'm going to start this next 6 or 5 week section where I teach. I'm going to start working on faces and drawing faces because people are very intimidated by them. And there's some formulas you can use to do that. And when I go through magazines, I like to tear out images that, I don't know, for whatever reason I like. And I like putting windows and doorways into my journal pages because it's like a way to look out. It's a way to reflect. So that's why I use that one. This one, I got it all done. And I'm like, it kind of reminds me of an alarm clock. So I had to put the hands of time in there. And again, writing is good. It gives you a place to dream. And that's upside down. Oh, that's why. Again, this is all mixed media. This started out with some papers that I had printed on the gel plate. And I went ahead and just pasted them down and then went and looked for other things out of magazines and embellished with some mark making and things like that. I love my fluorescent paints and my glittery inks. These are stamps. And then I tried to incorporate some mark making that would kind of coordinate with some of the stamps. And this was hand done, again, to reflect the repetition of that. An unfinished page. Yep, those will be in there. You can always come back. And a doorway out of a magazine. The magazine had the whole thing, but it would have been too big for this piece of paper. But I really wanted to use the doorway. So I just tore it in half and then did something on the other side of it. Then I started trying to use washi tape in my work. I'm not totally sure I like it. It doesn't always want to stick on the surface, and I think it kind of depends on what the surface is. And also there's a lot of wrinkles in it. The wrinkles would be okay if I maybe made more wrinkles, and it would look more like part of it. But I wasn't real crazy about the washi tape, at least in that application. These could use some more work. They're a little bland. These can use some more work. That definitely needs more work, and there's a blank page to work with too. This one has not been bound into anything yet. I have a couple other 4-page spreads that are not bound, but this one was just to play with some watercolor and mark making, and it needs some more contrast, which is another thing that I look for when I'm creating my pages. Does it have enough contrast? And this could definitely use some more contrast. This was just an experiment, and that was an experiment, and I think we're looking at this upside down. And this is also another exercise in mark making. So these were just pieces of watercolor and some of my favorite watercolors, and I combined them. And I don't know if you can see again on the camera, but right here is some sparkly paint, iridescent paint. Yes, they do make iridescent paint for watercolor. And then gel pens on top, white ink. This needs more, this needs more, this needs more, as we already talked about. And this was another one. I had a page and I was kind of like playing around showing somebody something about materials or ink or something. And I ended up just drawing randomly and it started looking, this reminds me of avocados and avocado trees and the thought of what seeds do you plant in your garden? What seeds do you plant with the people you meet? So that's what this was. And the question of, can I love forever? And I'm thinking of a rose garden, and I love the way this page came out. It actually, some of the ink on the magazine started coming off, but I kind of liked that. And also this was an exploration of some new materials that I had just gotten. And I like the way they tint photographs. And that's what those are all about, is tinting. Another one. This could use some more work as well. But I don't usually work with black. And so I was kind of pushing myself here to use black. These are more recent ones. These, I started the class session, this past session, of using the gel plate to make our backgrounds on. So all of these pages are from a gel plate. This one's not finished. This one is finished. And it's kind of hard to tell what has and has not come from the plate in gel plate printing. This one, again, gel plate printing, you can't really tell. This one I worked with texture paste, paper paste to be exact, which is really interesting, the way it creates texture on your pages and makes your pigments interact differently with it. And again, a blank sheet, you know, that had been gel printed. And I love the way the subtlety of some of these colors, which are from Ghost Prints. And also I discovered some paint with glitter in it. So I think if I move it around, you can see that. Another gel plate, not finished, but I love the way this came out. I may end up just leaving it because I think it's really pretty. This was one of my recent ones. Excuse me. This page has layers and layers of things on it. And I was trying to show my students how you can work in layers, but still make your items that you want to use and the elements show up. So here is some text from a magazine. And on top of that, I had printed on deli paper with the gel plate with polka dots. And so when you lay that over the top, it really makes a nice covering. And then I brought that down into some mints, photos of mints and other things that I found in magazines. And this would have been white, but I went back in and used some Neocolor tube to kind of get rid of the white because I didn't want all that white showing. So I hid it with using those as well. And some more. Corrugated cardboard makes great embellishing. This is tissue paper that's just been crunched up and glued down, and then when you press it real hard, it gives a nice texture. This is again from the gel plate and then using ink pens on top. Another one with a face, just a half a face. It's easier to start out with just half a face than a whole face because getting proportions right can be difficult. And this was using a stencil and then sponging paint through the stencil to get the lines and stuff. And then you can go back and embellish them more, make them more forward, bring them forward a little bit. And I had writing here and I didn't want it to be totally visible, so I covered it over with some dots. This one needs a little more. I don't like the way the white text is showing, so I may use some of those gelatos to tint this and make it so it's not so white. And more just random stuff, stencils, print media, like from magazines. And again, pieces from magazines. And when you're looking at magazines, you might see something that you like, but you're like, oh, I'm not sure how that's going to fit into my piece. And so this was a gigantic eye. and it was an advertisement, but I like the way the lines here worked. So I just tore it out carefully and made it this arc. This was part of a frozen ice, I think. And I just love the colors and the textures of it. So I tore that out. And then this just kind of went with it. So I added it in. And then I went and I found some poetry that I liked that kind of coordinated with the idea of the penguin. And so I just wrote that in on that page. And then this is the one I did at solstice. Every year, my friends back in Maryland, I have a gathering for solstice. And so that night I created this using stencils, stamping through the stencils, different types of inks and tinting. You know, that's what all of this was done with. And another kind of funky one. This is alcohol ink, and you might notice and learn from my mistake here that it bleeds through. So if the page has not been sealed, like with gesso or a matte medium or something like that, before you put the alcohol ink down, it'll bleed through. But you know, that's okay. That's why we call them an art journal. They're a place to learn and experiment and make mistakes, or figure out what to do once things like that happen. This is Delusions. It's a spray, but I like to take it out of the bottle and just use the tip of it to kind of put the ink down more carefully. This is not finished. This is not finished. This needs more contrast. This one I like. And that's the last page. And this page, there's a lot of things about it that reminded me of growing up in the 60s. You know, the color of the cupboards, the checkerboard floor, the palm trees, you know, from having grown up in Miami, and the crowds of people that show all different diverse ethnicities, which is also a big thing about growing up in Miami, is you got people from all over the world that live there. So that's my little flip through of my journal pages, and I hope you found it helpful. Like I said, there's many different types of journals you can do. It could be strictly writing. It could be all watercolor. It could be a variety of things. I just started a little mini journal on just mark making, because when you get to some of these pages and you want to make marks, you get like stuck. Well, what mark? I don't know what marks to use. So by having a little mini mark making journal, I can flip through and get ideas for what to use for mark making. So that's it. I hope you found this helpful. If you would, please either like it or make comments, and that way more people who are interested in art journaling, mixed media techniques and things like that will find the video. Thank you for watching.